The sun had begun its slow descent, casting long shadows across the dry, dusty land. A lone frontiersman, rugged and worn from days of traveling, moved steadily along a narrow desert path. His boots kicked up small clouds of sand with every step, and the heat of the late afternoon pressed heavily on his shoulders. He had traveled this land many times before, yet each journey reminded him of its dangers, the rocky cliffs, the sudden storms, and the wild animals that roamed freely. But he moved forward with purpose, guided by a sense of duty and a quiet determination that had carried him through many hardships before as he walked. A faint cry caught his attention. At first, he thought it might be the wind or perhaps a bird calling from the cliffs, but the sound grew louder and more urgent. Instinctively, he turned toward the noise, his eyes scanning the uneven terrain. There, in a narrow canyon, he spotted movement. Two figures were struggling, trapped between fallen rocks and steep walls. Without a second thought, he hurried toward them, his heart pounding with concern. When he reached the scene, he realized the two were Apache women, clearly frightened and injured. One had a cut along her arm. The other held her ankle at an odd angle, clearly twisted. Their eyes widened in alarm at the sight of him, their bodies tense and defensive. He raised his hands slowly, showing he meant no harm. "I'm here to help," he said calmly, his voice steady but gentle. The women hesitated, unsure if they could trust him. The desert was full of strangers, and their people had long taught them caution. Yet the frontiersman showed no weapon, only a worn satchel and a cloth he used to wipe sweat from his brow. He approached slowly, kneeling near them. "I can help you move," he said, pointing to the rocks. "You won't be safe here until we get you out." After a tense moment, the women nodded, understanding that staying where they were could be far more dangerous. Carefully, he assessed the situation, finding the smaller rocks that could be moved by hand and the larger ones that needed leverage or a makeshift lever. Sweat dripped from his face as he worked, but he did not stop. Slowly, he created a narrow path through the debris. The women followed his instructions, moving only when he signaled it was safe. Once clear of the immediate danger, he helped the woman with the twisted ankle sit down. "We need to clean these cuts and support your ankle," he said. From his satchel, he removed some clean cloths, water, and basic supplies. He wrapped the injured ankle with care, ensuring it was stable but not too tight. Then he cleaned the cut on her arm, applying gentle pressure to stop the bleeding. All the while, he spoke softly, keeping their attention away from fear and on the task at hand. Night was beginning to fall, and the desert grew colder quickly once the sun disappeared. The frontiersmen realized they could not travel in the dark. He gathered what little supplies he had and helped the women build a small shelter using rocks and branches. They huddled together, sharing warmth and quiet words. The women remained cautious, but slowly began to trust him. As the hours passed, they shared small pieces of their story, their names, their home, and how they had been traveling when misfortune struck. The frontiersmen listened carefully, nodding and responding with empathy. Though they did not speak much English and he knew only fragments of their language, gestures and tone conveyed understanding. There was a mutual respect forming, an unspoken bond between those who had survived danger together. The night was filled with the sounds of the desert. Distant howls of coyotes, the rustle of small creatures in the underbrush, and the whisper of the wind across the canyon walls. The frontiersmen kept watch, making sure no sudden threats approached. Every now and then, one of the women would stir, shivering from the cold or the fear that danger might return. He would cover them with extra cloth, speak softly, and ensure they felt safe. By the time the moon rose high in the sky, the women were finally able to relax. They had been terrified when first trapped, but now they felt protected. The frontiersman sat back on his heels, taking a moment to look at the starlit sky. The desert, though harsh, had a quiet beauty that always struck him, especially at night when the world seemed still and full of possibilities. He thought about the journey ahead, the risks, and the unknown challenges that might come. But he knew he could not abandon them. The next morning brought new light and new challenges. The frontiersmen helped the women stand and began planning a safe route to their village. They moved slowly, carefully navigating rocky terrain and avoiding dangerous areas. With each step, the women's trust in him grew. They began to talk more freely, laughing softly at moments of levity and sharing small details about their lives. He listened, learning not only about their struggles, but also about their culture, their beliefs, and the values of their people. By midday, they had reached a safer path, one that would eventually lead them back to the Apache territory. The frontiersman was vigilant, always alert to signs of danger. He knew that one wrong move could lead to disaster, but he also knew that courage and careful planning could see them through. The women moved closer to him as they traveled, showing that they trusted his guidance and strength. As they neared the edge of the canyon, a sound of movement made them pause. A scouting party from the Apache tribe appeared, their eyes sharp and wary. The women froze, looking to the frontiersman with fear. He stepped forward, raising his hands to show he meant no harm. The scouts eyed him closely, their expressions unreadable. The frontiersman remained calm, speaking slowly and showing gestures of peace. The women explained their story to the scouts, pointing to the frontiersman and describing how he had saved them. The scouts listened carefully, their faces still guarded but their eyes showing a flicker of understanding. The frontiersman stayed silent, letting his actions speak for him. He did not boast, did not demand respect. He only remained honest and patient. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the scouts nodded and motioned for the women to come with them. They would take them to the chief, the leader who would decide the next steps. The frontiersman followed at a respectful distance, knowing that he must earn the trust of the entire tribe. He had saved the women. But now he faced a new challenge, proving his goodwill to those who held the ultimate authority. By late afternoon, they reached the village. The chief, an older man with wise eyes and a calm presence, emerged to hear the story firsthand. The frontiersman bowed slightly, showing respect for the leader and the customs of the tribe. The chief listened carefully as the women recounted their experience, gesturing to the frontiersman and emphasizing his bravery and kindness. The frontiersman waited quietly, his heart steady but alert. He knew that the chief's judgment could change his life forever. The chief's gaze shifted from the women to him, examining his every expression, his posture, and the sincerity in his eyes. The frontiersman did not flinch. He had done what he believed was right, and he trusted that honesty and compassion would be understood. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the village, the chief finally spoke. He did not rush, for he understood the importance of careful consideration. His words were measured, thoughtful, and deliberate. The frontiersman listened intently, aware that his actions in the coming moments could define not only his future, but also the relationship he would have with these people. The women looked at him with hopeful eyes, silently expressing gratitude and trust. The frontiersman felt a quiet pride, not in himself, but in the bond that had formed through courage, care, and mutual respect. The journey had been difficult, the challenges great, but the possibility of understanding and friendship now glimmered on the horizon. And so, as night fell over the village, the frontiersman prepared to meet the chief properly. Ready to face whatever decision awaited him, he had saved the women, earned their trust, and now, in this moment, the true test of his character and intentions would begin. The desert had tested him, the women had relied on him, and the chief's judgment would soon reveal the path that lay ahead, one that could change his life in ways he had never imagined. The village was quiet as the frontiersman waited before the chief. The women he had saved stood close, their eyes filled with hope and a mixture of worry. The chief's gaze was steady, taking in every detail how the frontiersman stood. The wear on his clothes, the care he had shown toward the women, and the calm strength in his eyes. He seemed like a man who had faced many dangers and had always done what he thought was right. The chief motioned for the frontiersman to speak. Though he had little knowledge of the Apache language, he relied on gestures, tone, and simple words to explain his actions. He described how he had found the women trapped, how he had helped them, and how he had made sure they were safe through the night and during their journey to the village. He spoke honestly and calmly, never exaggerating, never demanding reward. The chief listened silently, nodding slowly as the story unfolded. He then turned to the women, asking them to confirm the story. The women spoke carefully, using their words and gestures to show the truth of what the frontiersmen had done. Their expressions were earnest. They wanted the chief to understand the bravery and kindness they had witnessed. After a long moment of consideration, the chief rose. The entire village seemed to hold its breath. The frontiersman stood respectfully, his hands folded in front of him, waiting for the decision that would determine the rest of his life. The chief looked at the women, then back at the frontiersman, and finally he spoke in measured tones, his words clear even through the translator. He praised the frontiersman's courage and his selfless actions. He acknowledged that saving the women had been a dangerous task, and he recognized the care and patience the man had shown. The chief explained that trust was earned in the Apache way, not just by words, but by actions, and the frontiersman had proven himself through deeds. He had respected the women, faced danger without complaint, and shown a willingness to help others even when it meant risking his own safety. This respect for life, courage, and honesty was exactly what the tribe valued most. Then the chief did something unexpected. He offered the frontiersman a rare reward and opportunity to become a friend and honored guest of the tribe. This was not a simple gesture. It was an invitation to live among the people, learn their ways, and share in their community. Such offers were seldom made to outsiders, but the chief believed that the frontiersman's heart and actions had earned this extraordinary trust. The frontiersman was both humbled and honored. He bowed deeply, showing his gratitude and respect. He realized that this offer was more than material reward or safety. It was a chance to build lasting bonds, to understand a culture that had long been misunderstood by outsiders, and to live in a community where kindness and bravery were truly valued. The women smiled, relief and happiness shining on their faces. They had worried about what would happen after the chief heard their story, but now their trust in the frontiersman was validated. The bond formed during the night of survival had grown stronger. They saw him not as a stranger, but as someone who could be counted on, someone who had proven his honor and compassion. Over the next few days, the frontiersman began to integrate into the village life. The chief introduced him to other members of the tribe, and they welcomed him with curiosity and cautious friendliness. He learned their daily routines, their traditions, and their values. He helped where he could, repairing fences, carrying water, and sharing his own knowledge of survival skills that could benefit the village. The people watched him closely, observing his actions and seeing that he was sincere. Each day, the frontiersman learned more about the Apache way of life. He admired their strength, resilience, and connection to the land. He saw the deep respect they had for one another and the importance they placed on community. The women he had saved became close companions and guides, helping him understand their language and culture. Together, they shared stories around the fire each night, teaching each other lessons about courage, patience, trust. The frontiersman also realized that this experience had changed him. Before, he had traveled alone, focused on survival and independence. But now he understood the value of community, of protecting others, and of building bonds that could last a lifetime. He had acted out of simple kindness, yet that act had opened doors to experiences and relationships he could never have imagined. One afternoon, Chief took the frontiersman aside. He spoke of the tribe's history and the importance of mutual respect between different peoples. He explained that the frontiersman's actions were a reminder that courage and kindness could bridge gaps, even between strangers and those who might have seen each other as enemies. The chief's words carried wisdom and encouragement, reinforcing that the decision to help the women had been not only brave, but transformative for everyone involved. The women, too, shared their gratitude and joy. They spoke of how frightening it had been to be trapped in the canyon, how hopeless they had felt, and how the frontiersman's presence had brought safety and hope. They expressed deep respect for him, acknowledging that his courage had saved their lives and given them the chance to return to their community. Their trust and friendship became a cornerstone of his new life among the tribe. As weeks passed, the frontiersman became fully integrated into the community. He participated in daily life, learning skills and sharing his own knowledge. The bond he had formed with the women remained strong, and their friendship became a bridge to the rest of the tribe. People began to see him not as an outsider, but as a valued member who had proven himself through action, honor, and compassion. One evening, the frontiersman stood on a hill overlooking the village. The sun was setting, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink. He thought about how his life had changed so quickly from traveling alone, through a dangerous desert, to becoming part of a community that respected and valued him. He remembered the fear in the women's eyes when he first found them, the long night in the canyon, and the moment the chief had spoken his decision. Each memory reminded him that kindness and courage could create connections that went far beyond simple acts of help. The chief called a small gathering that night. He addressed the tribe, recounting the story of the frontiersman's bravery. He spoke of how a single act of selflessness could inspire trust, build community, and create lasting bonds. The tribe listened carefully, nodding in agreement and expressing their appreciation. It became clear that the frontiersman's actions had not only helped the two women, but it also strengthened the entire village, showing them the power of courage, empathy, and respect. In the following months, the frontiersman continued to live among the tribe. He taught them survival skills, learned their language more fully, and participated in ceremonies and traditions. He became a trusted friend to many, and a bridge between the tribe and other travelers passing through the land. The women remained his closest companions, always by his side as guides, teachers, and friends. Over time, the frontiersman realized that the greatest reward he had received was not land, gold, or recognition. It was the gift of trust, friendship, and a community that accepted him for who he was. The chief's offer had indeed changed his life forever, opening a path to understanding, respect, and belonging that he had never expected. He often reflected on that first day in the canyon, the fear, the danger, and the choice to help. That single decision had led to experiences and relationships that shaped the rest of his life. He understood now that courage was not just about facing danger. It was about acting with integrity, kindness, and empathy. Even when the outcome was uncertain, the story of the frontiersman and the two Apache women became a tale told among the tribe, reminding everyone of the power of compassion and the impact a single person could have when they chose to help others. And though the frontiersman had begun his journey as a lone traveler, he ended it surrounded by a community that valued him, respected him, and welcomed him as one of their own. His life had been forever changed, not by wealth or conquest, but by the simple act of helping two women in need, and by the trust and generosity of a chief who saw the goodness in a stranger's heart. In the quiet evenings, as he sat around the fire with the women and the rest of the tribe, he knew that this connection, this sense of belonging, was the greatest adventure of all.